السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كيف حالكم جميعا يا أيها الإخوة والأخوات؟ رمضان مبارك. Alhamdulillah, this is the first day of the Qur'an. This is the first day of the Qur'an. This is also the first day of Saum, the first day of fasting. And no doubt, by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala, from time to time throughout the month of Ramadan, we will be doing little segments focusing only on the Quran. It was reported that Imam Shafi'i, rahmatullah ta'ala alayh, when Ramadan would come in, he will put down everything else, he will focus only on the Quran. So this is what we would like to do, inshallah ta'ala, this month as well. Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says in the Quran, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, and to the end of the verse, that the month of Ramadan wherein the Quran was revealed. So it's only right that we focus and spend our energy on focusing on the Quran. And a while back we had did something about the Quran challenge, and we broke down how the Quran is broken down to 604 pages and so forth, how you can be able to complete the Quran in 1 month. So for those of us who follow our daily Quran page, what we will be doing from time to time, we started last night, we will be reading selected verses or 4 pages just to start it off, inshallah, from the Quran. And like we said, about each day you should do about 20 pages in total. Okay, so what we do is we read 4 pages and we finish the rest on our own, and then we come back and read another 4 pages wherever we left off at. Today, inshallah ta'ala, is the first day of the Quran, but it will also be what we're going to go into, inshallah ta'ala, is the first 20 verses. We're going to highlight and focus on the first 20 verses of the second chapter of the Quran, which is Surah Baqarah. Okay? And many of you might know by now that Surah Baqarah is known as the cow. I don't know if many of you know why it was given the name. Ibn Kathir, he brought a beautiful point in his tafsir. He explains that when it comes to the naming of the Quran or the chapters of the surah in the Quran, most time you will find that their subject matter is somewhere inside the actual surah. It can be in the middle of the surah, it can be sometimes close to the beginning of the surah, or it can be towards the ending of the surah, why they might take on their particular name. This particular surah, which is Surah Baqarah, it is the second surah in the Mus'haf. Brothers and sisters, when you hear the term Mus'haf, it's not like when you saying Quran, even though it is the Quran. And let me explain this. Mus'haf is from the front to the back. It is pages, okay? It is from the front to the back. It is in all Arabic. That's what we understand from a Mus'haf, an all Arabic Quran. It doesn't have any English translation or any other type of translations, rather. It is an all Arabic Quran from the front to the back. So the second surah of the Mus'haf, it has been given the name Baqarah. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions the story of Baqarah, of the cow, which He have commanded the children of Israel in slaughtering it and sacrificing it in order to make known the murderer, okay, which they had doubt about this particular person who has slaughtered someone, who have killed someone. So as a sign and an alama from Allah Azza wa Jal, He told them to sacrifice this cow and to strike therewith the body of the cow, and that person will come back to life. And this is also one of the 5 instances that's mentioned in Surah Baqarah alone about resurrection. Okay, about resurrection. Tayyib. Continuing. This also is a tremendous great surah, because it contains in there lofty pearls, okay, lofty jewels in Aqidah, in belief, in ahkam, rules and regulations, in qasas al-umam al-sabiqa, and other than that, and also dealing with the stories of the previous nations, and other than that, that is mentioned inside there. Imam Qurtubi, he mentioned that Surah Baqarah contains, majority of Surah Baqarah deals with ahkam, rules and regulations, what you can do and what you cannot do. Okay, and multiple times you will see throughout Surah Baqarah, Allah Jalla wa Ala will say, "Yas'alunaka anil shahr al-Ramadan, anil shahr al-qital, yas'alunaka anil muhayd, yas'alunaka anil khamri, yas'alunaka," and to the end, Allah will mention that they ask you, O Muhammad, about this, or they ask you, O Muhammad, about that, or they ask you, O Muhammad, about this. So Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in Surah Baqarah is informing the Muslims about the rules and regulations of what they can do and what they cannot do. Therefore, it shouldn't be no doubt to anyone that Surah Baqarah is a Madani surah. It's not a Meccan surah, okay? It's a Madani surah. And we will give you the benefits, inshallah ta'ala, the difference between a Meccan surah and a Madani surah, okay? When we say a Meccan surah, we're talking about a surah that not necessarily been revealed in Mecca. It could have been revealed outside of Mecca, but it was revealed before the Hijrah, okay? It was revealed before the Hijrah, and it does not necessarily mean it has to be revealed in Mecca. This is what we say when it's a Meccan surah. And if you notice, most Meccan surahs, or majority of Meccan surahs, they all deal and concentrate with belief, heaven, hell, reward, punishment, etc. But when you deal with the Madani surahs, now the Madani surah is any surah that was revealed after the Hijrah, but it don't necessarily have to be in Medina, okay? It can be outside of Medina. And the Madani surah deals mostly with rules and regulation, ahkam, okay? And they differ from the Meccan surahs because they have long verses. So Surah Baqarah, if majority of it is ahkam, then we know no doubt that it's a Madani surah. It is a surah that was revealed during the Madani period, meaning after the Hijrah. Also, it is a surah, no doubt, that it is the longest surah in the Qur'an. And it's one of the 7 longest surahs of the Qur'an. And we know that it took Umar ibn al-Khattab over 8 years to memorize Surah Baqarah. And not because he didn't have the ability to memorize it before then, but only because he wanted to, because the Salaf, the way that they would do their focus and their study on the Quran is different than what we do. As they was mentioned that they will study 10 verses and then they will learn about those 10 verses, and then they will put those 10 verses in practice before learning 10 more verses. Okay, so this way they was able to gather between ilm, knowledge, and amal, and action. So Umar ibn Khattab took 8 years to put this surah to memory because there was a lot of rules and regulations that he would like to implement it or have placed into his life. Tayyib. It has been reported that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged his ummah to learn this particular surah. For the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ta'allamu Surah al-Baqarah." Learn Surah Baqarah. فَإِنَّ أَخَذَهَا بَرَكَةً وَتَرَكَهَا حَسْرَةً وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُهَا الْبَاطِلَ. And we're going to explain this. He said, for learning it, when the person grasps it, this person has barakah. The person who grasps it, the person who learns it, has barakah. Okay? And the one who leaves it off is humiliated, is lost. And no one is no one is able to approach it. And falsehood is not able to approach it. Okay? This means that the shayateen لا يستطيعون بقاء في المكان الذي تقرأ فيه هذه السورة. That the shayateen, and this should show all of us the mu'jiza of the Quran and the status, the miracle of the Quran. and the status, the i'jizal of the Qur'an and the status of the Qur'an, because there is no other book that I know of or have came across that chase away the shayateen like this particular book here. There is no other book that you can recite that hold the same status of reward as the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, where he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that for kulli harfin hasana, or ashra hasana, for each harf there is a hasanat. And he said alif lam mim. He said rather do not say alif lam mim together, but rather alif hasanat, lam hasanat, mim hasanat. Okay? Rather I say aleph have 10 hasanat or hasanat. Rather I say lam itself have hasanat or 10 hasanat. Or whether I say mim. So there is no book that I know of that just reciting the letters, whether you understand them or not, as Imam Shafi brought from this particular hadith, showing that you don't have to have comprehension in order to receive the reward of those hasanat by reciting those verses. Now, I don't know any other book like this. Also, I don't know any other book that you have to seek refuge with Allah from the shaitan before reading this particular book. No matter wherever you at in the book, as Allah Jalla wa Ala says in Surah An-Nahl, فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. When you want to read the Quran, then seek refuge with Allah Jalla wa Ala from the cursed shaitan. So we know that this book holds a high status, okay? It holds a high status. And if you look at our approach to the Quran as opposed to the companions' approach to the Quran, they understand it a little bit different. They knew all of these fadls or fada'il, virtues that the Quran had. This is why they were the type, when they touched the Mus'haf or touched the Quran, they would be in wudu before opening it up. We're the type that would grab the Quran no matter where we at, whether we came from work or whatever, go inside the masjid, open the Quran up, place the Quran on the floor, etc., etc. We are totally different. The respect and the reverence that we have for the Quran is not the same. And this is why they was elevated by the Quran, because it hold a ta'aleem. It hold a certain reverence in their hearts. And they understood all these components that we're mentioning for the virtues of the Quran. And this is something that we ask Allah to allow us to get. But look at the beauty of this. The shayateen is not able to remain in a place or reside in a place wherein this particular surah is read. So if you want to get rid of the shayateen, the devils, from out of your home, which is encouraged, we'll talk about that in another narration. If you want to get rid of the devils from your home or anything like that, all you have to do is recite the surah. You don't have to recite the whole entire surah. You can recite parts of the surah. And there's also verses from our hadith, the last two verses of this particular surah, 285 and 286, and also verse 255, Ayatul Kursi, that you recite before going to bed. Or you can recite as well from the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib after every fard salat, meaning after Fajr all the way up until Isha, after each fard salat, you can recite Ayatul Kursi. It's a protection from the shaitan. It's a protection from the shaitan. So it shows you there the level and the fadl of this particular surah. Tayyib. So that you know we're not coming from the hip. This is the tafsir from the Alama, Dr. Shaykh Saalih al-Fawzaan, hafidhullah. And this is his commentary on the first 20 verses of the Quran. This is not from Brother Nafis. This is actually from Shaykh Saalih al-Fawzaan, hafidhullah. He mentions that he said that this is just as it has been stated in the hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna shaytana yanfiru min al-bayt alladhi tuqra'u fihi Surah Baqarah." That indeed the shaitan flees, he runs away from the house wherein Surah Baqarah is being recited. So one of the things that repels the shaitan or make the shaitan flees is this particular surah here. He comments, he says, the meaning of tu'allamiha wa akhidhiha. The meaning of this is to learn qira'atiha ala wajh as-sahih, to learn how to read it in the proper manner. Okay? to learn how to recite in a proper manner. وَمَعْرِفَةُ مَعَانِيهَا وَتَفْسِيرِهَا, and also learn its meanings and its explanation. Okay? Learning the meanings of the alfaz, of the wording that is used in this particular surah. Also learning the explanation of this particular surah. Okay? Now, Ramadan Mubarak. I want to tell the brothers and sisters, stay away from saying Ramadan Kareem. As Shaykh Saalih Uthaymeen, rahmatullah ta'ala alayh, he commented on this when he was asked about the Ramadan Kareem. He said Ramadan is not such that it can give off Kareem. Ramadan does not give off that which is generous. Okay? Saying Ramadan Mubarak is la bas, or anything other similar to that, it is a blessed month. Okay? Allah Jalla wa Ala talks about it being revealed on a decree, a night that is blessed. Okay? So you want to stay away from saying Ramadan Kareem. Ramadan Mubarak hada yajuz. This is permissible. And Allah knows best. وَلَيْسَ مَرَادَ مَجْرَدَ الْقِرَاءَ أَوْ تَعَلِّمَ الْقِرَاءَةِ الْفَقَدِ. And this is the difference between us and the Sahabas. And I know this personally for myself. Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he commented and said that he was talking to the tabi'een, those who came after, the companions, and he said, we were those who were given the ability to understand the Quran easily, but not memorize it so easily. And you are people that is given to understand, to memorizing the wordings easily, but your comprehension is not given there easy. Okay? You don't understand it. You don't have fahm of it easily. So if you look at it, the Shaykh is saying here, it is not merely to recite Baqarah, okay? Or to just learn how to recite it only. That should not be a person's focus when, not even just with Baqarah, but any surah from the surah in the Quran, okay? He said, إِنَّمَا مُرَادُ تَعَلَمِ كِرَاءَتَهَا وَتَعَلَمَ عَانِيهَا حَتَّى يَعْمَلَ بِهَا, because this is the purpose. He said that the person should only learn its meaning, right? Learn how to recite it and learn its meaning until the person can act according to it. Okay? So learning its meaning is learning the wording of it. Okay? And I'm not going to try to be too long. I just wanted to give this little introduction to these first 20 verses so we can get a better understanding when we read the Quran and when we approach the Quran. We should understand that we are approaching a sacred book. Okay? And if any of y'all are familiar with the story of Musa in the Quran, you'll be familiar with the statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla fi Surah Al-Taha, which is the 20th chapter of the Quran, when he was in the sacred valley of Tuwa. And Allah Jalla wa Ala told Musa to take off his shoes, okay? Because he was standing in the presence of Allah Azza wa Jalla. You know what I mean? Not physically, but he was in the presence of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And because he was in the presence of Allah Jalla wa Ala, there were certain manners or etiquettes that he had. Now imagine if we take that same approach with the sacred book of Allah. When we open the Quran, we already in wudu. We're already purified, we're already clean. This is why it's not permissible, nor is it recommended, nor is it encouraged for a woman who's on her menses that she open up the Mus'haf. We're talking about the all-Arabic Quran while she's on her menses. Likewise, this is the reason why it's not permissible for a person who is in mani, or a person who's in a state of janub, a person who's in a state of sexual impairment should open the Quran, meaning the all-Arabic Quran, while in that state. Or a person who is in a state of mani and needs to make a ghusl should not open the Quran. See, all of these things connect. Why? Because the book is more so a spiritual book, but it's a physical book. Okay? But it is a sacred book. Put that in your mind. When you open the Quran, it's not another novel. It's not another book from another human being. There's no author for the Quran but Allah Azza wa Jalla. Put it in your mind that the book that you're reading is from Allah, Rabbul Alameen. That's what we have to put in our mind. Once your mind and your heart start to translate that this is the actual words of the Creator of the heavens and the earth, then you won't see Muhammad. Then you won't see this or that. You will see actually what your Lord wants you to understand. Okay? along with other things, understanding the meanings, the alfaz and so forth, the wording, and also the tafsir. But you will start, and we mentioned this earlier. He said, for this reason, they said, كُنَّ لَا نَتَجَاوَزُ عَشْرَ آيَاتٍ حَتَّى نَتَعَلَّمَ مَعَانِيهَا وَعَمَلَ بِهَا. And we talked about this earlier. They will approach the Quran a little bit different. Here is the actual wording. They say that we will not proceed to past 10 verses until we learned their meaning and we act according to them. قال, then he said, فَتَعَلَّمْنَا عِلْمَ وَعَمَلَ جَمِيعًا. So we learned, or we gathered together collectively, the knowledge and action. Okay? هذا هو المقصود من تعلم البقرة وغيرها من القرآن. And the Shaykh said this is the actual objective and the purpose of learning Baqarah or any other surah from the Quran, meaning you learn how to recite it properly. And learning how to recite it properly, brothers and sisters, falls under also learning the tajweed. And when I say the tajweed here, I'm talking about the mandatory tajweed, because Shaykh Fawzaan, he is of the opinion that there is a mandatory tajweed. Whereas though, when I say mandatory, meaning that you want to make sure you recite properly enough to stay away from making any major errors that would change the meaning of the particular word. Not necessarily have to go, the Shaykh is not of the opinion that it is mandatory that you learn how to do all of the gunna, the different mudud. I mean, some meds are obligatory. But besides the obligatory meds, all of the other super fluffy stuff, he was not of the opinion that you have to learn that. Some of the earlier scholars are of the opinion that learning all of that stuff, the gunna, the idgham, all of that stuff is obligatory. So there seems to be a little bit of debate there. But the mandatory tajweed is making sure you are free from major lahn, changing the meaning of the actual Quran. Tayyib. He says here, learning in accordance to its correct manner, learning its meaning, learning its tafsir. Notice he keeps saying learning is ma'ani and learning is tafsir, because the tafsir is not the same thing as the ma'ani. Okay? And when we're talking about the ma'ani here, which is the plural for ma'na, we're talking about, again, we try to keep honing you into talking about learning the meaning of the alfaz, okay, of the wording that is used in the Quran. There is books that the authors have put together, and Imam Shaykh rahimahullah, he has a nice series of lectures that he gave on how to study the Quran. And in his first talk, he talked about getting those books that have, and it's like the dictionary, where they have at the beginning of those books, like they might start with Aleph, and they bring all of the wordings that are mentioning with Aleph inside the Quran. Yeah, scholars have put in work, brothers and sisters. They have really put in work. I mean, from Aleph to Ya, going in and taking those wordings from the Quran. And also, I have possession of, so I know it's out there, a 3-volume set where they give you a word for word meaning closely for the wordings that comes in the Quran. This is learning the alfaz. Shaykh said the person should learn the alfaz, the wording of the Quran, the ma'ani. Okay? As far as the tafsir of the Quran, that's what we're doing here. You're going to learn the tafsir by going over some of the different explanations from the different mufassirin. The earliest, the better, starting from the earliest of the mufassirin all the way on down. Tayyib. He says here, بِقَصْدِ الْعَمَلِ وَالْإِمْتِثَالِ. And he said, so you're going to learn all of this stuff for what? So that you can hold a PhD, or so that you can hold a live, so you can hold a class, or no, you're learning this. All of this is for the purpose of amal, action, and compliance to Allah commands. That should be the focus. Did I put this into practice? How do I put this into practice? How do I put it into practice enough so that Allah can accept it from me? Okay? And we get ready to stop. We're going to not have enough time, not to hold the people up, inshallah ta'ala, to go over all of this. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to stretch this out throughout the month of Ramadan. And we're going to focus on the Quran only. Inshallah ta'ala, we focus only on the Quran. So, again, so that people understand, Surah Baqarah is the second chapter of the Quran. The Mus'haf, when we say Mus'haf, the plural is Musahif. We're talking about our Arabic Quran. Another point that we brought earlier also is that the Surah Baqarah has been given its name due to the cow that was sacrificed as a way of a miracle to make known the murderer who have killed someone, okay? And understanding that Baqarah is also a Medini surah. It is a surah that is Medina, and when we say a Medini surah, we're talking about a surah that was revealed after the Hijrah, even if it was outside of Medina. It don't have to be actually in Medina, okay? Outside of Medina, we talked about that. We also tell you about the virtue of this particular surah, that it keeps the shayateen away. It chases the shaitan away. That a person should recite it in his or her home, because this is a protection for a person to be free from the shaitan. We also talked about learning it, the importance of learning it, and what is intended by learning it. Intended by learning, as Shaykh Saalih Fawzaan said, is learning its meaning, its alfaz, its wording, as also learning its tafsir, but for the purpose or the objective of acting in compliance to Allah's commands. This should be the purpose of learning this particular surah. So the next time we start, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to deal with the letters that comes in the beginning of this particular surah, which is Alif Lam Mim. And hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, you was able to take some benefit. I was able to get some benefit from this tremendous tafsir. And we're only going to be focused on the first 20 verses, brothers and sisters, of the Quran. Also, again, like I said, the Delhi Quran page, you can actually subscribe to it. We're going to be reading only 4 pages, okay? We'll be reading 4 pages every day until Ramadan is over, inshallah. But behind the scenes, we will be finishing our 20 pages. It's 20 pages in total. But if you take 4 pages after each salat, and it's 5 prayers, then you're going to have about, at the end of that, 5 times 4 is 20, you will have 20 pages, okay? You can do it that way. If Allah give you the ability, you can read all 20 pages collectively, and you don't have to do it after each salat. But I think after each salat will be more easier for you to go out your day and to take things shay'in for shay'in. Whatever we said that was incorrect in our translation, it's definitely from ourselves and shaitan. Whoever said it was correct is from Allahu Jalla wa Ala. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallahu khairan.